Awesome. Cool. Yeah, so hi everyone. Welcome to the GUAC community meeting. As usual, with any of these community meetings, hope to have a friendly environment. Something nice being recorded, probably uploaded somewhere to me on the internet forever, or maybe. um, so welcome everyone again. I think I see a lot of familiar faces and quite a few new faces as well. So this is the second community meeting. The first one we had sometime last December, and then we kind of had a break for holidays. Now we're back at it. This is now a recurring meeting. It's happening on this Thursday of each month. So that's going to be coming up every month. And depending on kind of how it goes here and, what we see with the people do have things that they want to talk about a little bit more, and that kind of face-to-face is helpful, then we may make this more often. So high level, I think we just want to be able to kind of show a little bit of what we've been working on and what the project is doing, as well as get some feedback, also hear from members from the community, and also like if folks are curious to want to contribute and want to know how to, I think this meeting probably is a good place to talk about that. So before we start, maybe let's do for folks that want to introduce themselves, let's just keep some time for that. So go around, feel free, raise your hand, or just unmute your mic and say something. Whatever works.
Hey everyone, Dan Perry, as it says in the little box in the corner. I work for Google Cloud. I'm a customer engineer, and obviously my customers are quite interested in supply chain security, and so am I. And I'm looking to help out as any way I can, and this is my first meeting.
Awesome, welcome Dan.
Hey guys, this is Hemal here. I work at Yahoo, and we are building an internal solution for software supply chain security. And we plan to use GUAC and maybe contribute and work with you guys as well on how to use it in production environment. So happy to be here.
Awesome.
Hi everyone. My name is Iman. I'm a PhD student at Purdue. We've been working with Google Fox on this project for a little bit. I'm interested in software supply chain security and transparency aspects. Nice to meet you all.
Okay, I'm Dan. I'm with Red Hat, along with my colleague Kevin. I think he's also on the call. So we're part of the small team, also researching and doing stuff around the software supply chain security. We're building kind of a policy engine and a proxy for build tools, and we're looking into a service like this that we can query for store and query SBOMs and different metadata around. So we are willing to see how we can contribute more to the project and see where it goes.
I'll introduce myself in that case. I'm Kevin Connor. I'm a contractor at Red Hat. I had my first PR merge yesterday and looking forward to contributing more over the next few months.
Hi everyone, my name is Rob Honeyball. I'm a staff engineer at Sneak. I work in the open source space and really interested to see how we can contribute and potentially leverage GUAC in deriving more insights from the open source security space.
Cool. Hi everybody, my name is John Ziola. I have a small consulting company that I own, and we work a lot with mid-sized tech companies that are growing and have a need to provide big reports on lots of evidence and don't want to do that manually. So that's what I do.
Hello, everybody. My name is Leo Alvarez. I'm a partner at Baker Tilly. It's a CPA and assurance firm. I work in our third-party risk management practice and have interest in tools like GUAC to help illuminate supply chains. So looking forward to working with the team.
Hello, I'm Veronica Lopez. I work at Planet Scale, and where I lead the efforts for security for the supply chain. And I found GUAC because we're very, very interested in like not just having the SPOMs and all those trendy things, but what does it really mean for us, right? So tools like GUAC are exactly what we were looking for. And yeah, I also contribute as a tech lead for SIG release and Kubernetes, where we have been doing some of this work. So everything is coming together. So I'm very happy to be here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Randall. I'm chief architect of the SKF project, and I also am part of LF.
Hey, my name is Raj Krishnamurthy. I work at a startup called Compliance Cow. We focus on automating security controls. So I'm interested in learning and contributing towards GUAC.
Awesome. I think that's it, and great to see so many new folks. And I think some folks also, a couple of us have met at Cloud Native Security Con recently. So good to see you again as well. Yeah, so just also wanted to go around. So I think we have couple folks on the call that are maintainers as well. So if you have other questions, feel free to reach out. Myself, Michael Lieberman, Path, and Mihai on the call maintainers. So it's know the familiar faces. If you feel free to reach out to us on Slack or anything. Cool. So my hope is we have some demos that we want to show today. Hopefully share a little bit more info, and then we'll hopefully still have about half an hour, 20 minutes to half an hour to kind of just open up the floor and talk about things. So quick thing first on today's agenda is to share some of the meeting notes that we had. So let me share my screen. So about a month, almost a month now, we got together maintainers and a couple others with some use cases. We got together and basically the whole part of this exercise was, we created a POC sometime last year. We tried out a bunch of things. We realized that we found some success and also some areas where we needed to solve some technical problems. And so the part of this summit was to get together, kind of figure out how to tackle those problems, come with some solutions, and then start to work on that, and then aim for the next thing that we have, which is what we're calling the GUAC beta. So I'm just gonna go through a very high level overview of what we're looking at, kind of all the technical problems we aimed at solving, and what we hope the next iteration of it will be. And then I'm not gonna go through the rest of the details of the doc because it can go pretty deep, and it can take an hour and a half on its own. So what we are aiming towards as a project is we want to have this thing called the GUAC beta. Actually, let me make this a little bit bigger. There we go. So the idea in the GUAC beta is we want to be able to have a deployable service, something that anyone can take and deploy, and be able to answer the vulnerability questions and supply chain security questions about their software dependencies. More specifically, deployable end-to-end service. So you can query by your software identifiers or by your SBOMs and all that. We want GUAC to be able to consume and ingest all the software metadata that you have gathered. So your SBOMs, the source documents that you have generated for your own internal applications and software. And then what happens then is GUAC will then observe ingest the ingested documents and say that, okay, now looks like using this open source library or with this additional metadata that you can get about this particular container that you're using. Let's go reach out to additional data sources like depths.dev, vulnerability databases like osv.dev, scorecards information, reaching out to OCI registries, and kind of like just pulling all the data back into GUAC so you can automatically reason more about it. So the end-to-end workflow will kind of be run a command, just tell it, here are the documents I have. It's either can be a GitHub repository or just like internal on the file system. And then there'll be a GUAC UI. You can put in the pull, a hash, or SBOM, and it should give you a page with kind of the results from it, as well as a graphical representation that you can play with. So that and all is kind of what the GUAC beta we're aiming to do, and the plan is to have this done around the March or April timeframe. And so there's a lot of different aspects of it. So this document itself just talks about all the difficult problems that there are and the ontology and things like that. So the notes are open. Feel free to browse it. There's a lot of details in there, and feel free to comment on it and ask us questions or have discussions on it. All this is open. So as part of the effort, there's multiple subcomponents that we had to do. So one of it, and I think some of the feedback that we got from last time is like, oh yeah, you know, the backend database being a graph database, can you use a different database like Postgres? Can I use different graph databases like ArongoDB and so forth? And so one of the ways that we are addressing that is with the GraphQL, having GraphQL interface and kind of streamlining that a bit more. So that's going to be our first demo. Yeah, I guess let's just go ahead with that. Path and Mihai. Oh yes.
Can I start presenting?
Yeah.
Okay. 1 second. So basically, actually, let me go to the design doc. Sorry. So this was the POC layout of GUAC. We had like a pipeline where you got the document, collected, processed them, ingested them into the database. But with the GraphQL, we want to have a GraphQL interface just between the database and anything else, either the users or the rest of the GUAC pipeline, because this would allow us to prevent multiple bad scenarios. Like maybe people don't want to use Neo4j in their deployment of GUAC, or maybe because if GUAC uses Neo4j, people would have to learn how to use Cypher queries, or maybe they would want, if they allow people to use Cypher queries, somebody could just delete all of the nodes. Match and so now the database is empty. So we don't want that. What we want to do is to have a standard interface between the rest of GUAC and the backend, and then control whatever the users can do or whatever the application can do. So we discussed to do the GraphQL interface, and also during the summit that we had, we discussed to have an ontology. So in this demo, I am going to just focus on the package tree, which matches the per specifier. So we have like a type for a package, we have a namespace that could be optional, we have a name, versions, and so on. And in this demo, I have some queries where I can ingest packages into the system. So for example, this mutation at the end, ingest a TensorFlow package on PyPI. So if I run it, it will say, okay, it got ingested. And right now, if I ingest it again, nothing would happen. I will still have just one TensorFlow ingested. Whereas with the previous implementation, it could ingest multiple duplicates. So now I can run the first query, which is just give me everything that is ingested in the database. And you see it's just one TensorFlow because I just deleted everything before. But another benefit that we have from this is that we can also run multiple backends. So this was with the Neo4j backend, but I can also run in-memory backend. Ignore that it's called testing at the moment. So if I run the in-memory backend and I run again the mutation that the query that gives me all of the packages that I have in that backend, you'll see that I have a large number of packages in here. I can even go down. So for example, I can say, what are the packages on PyPI? Or maybe I want, is there a PyPI package called Debian? That would be the Q3. There is none. But there is a Debian package called in namespace Debian. So I can see whatever is in there and so on. And so this example focused just on the package tree. And I'll move over to part to talk about the rest of the types that we have in the system.
Awesome. Thank you, Mihai. All right, so I will share my screen. All right. Sure. Okay. So I kind of wanted to talk about the ontology that Mihai kind of mentioned. I wanted to kind of give a brief overview on that. Right. So we decided that if you remember the old structure, there was like a bunch of package nodes and source nodes and so forth, but they were all one node. And so we decided to make it more into like a trie structure especially for all the packages and so forth. So down here you can see, as Mihai was saying, the package is now broken up into type, namespace, a name, and then a qualifier and so forth. This diagram needs to be updated a little bit based on some of the rework that we did, but this kind of gives you an overview of how the objects, the software objects themselves, are going to be broken into like trie structures that allow us to easily query them and append to them. So each package would now have its own trie, basically, right? So each one would be unique stuff, the elements that are contained within it. Same thing for source, and then there'd be artifact builder, and then we have three other ones that are related to CVEs, like or vulnerabilities, like a CVE one, GitHub security advisory, and then an OSV one, which kind of ties back into the GHSA or CVE, and I'll show that off coming up. And then the other piece we wanted to add was the evidence tree. So if I scroll back up here, you can see that there was the software tree that we kind of talked about. So that's the packages, package trie, source trie, builder, artifact, and so forth. And then here is the evidence. This is what we're calling like the attestations. So how the three items, the actor tree, the evidence, and software are kind of tied together is based off this evidence artifact item in the middle right here, which is going to allow us to append the two software trees or evidence trees to the actor tree and so forth. So this, you can think about it as like an in toto attestation. So if I scroll down, you can see some of this here. So for example, these are some of the evidence that we're looking at to implement. So for example, like, hey, certify vulnerability. So like a package could be vulnerable to a specific OSV, CVE, or GHSA, right? So we want to have that information. So that's going to connect the package trie to the identity along with the attestation and with the CVE and so forth. So you can see that this verbs basically kind of create the connection between the objects together. So in here we have certified vulnerability, which is more about like getting this package is vulnerable to something. Has salsa, right? So if it has a salsa attestation associated with it, so a package or an artifact or some kind of a source, something has a salsa attestation, then it's going to give the properties associated with it. Scorecard, if you remember, Brendan was saying that we want to incorporate OSV scorecard and so forth. So if there's if a repo or something else has a scorecard associated with it, then we want to append more information about the scorecard. If there's an SBOM associated with it and so forth, right? So this keeps kind of going down. And then some of the other ones are like if there is an occurrence of something, right? So in terms of like I have a package or I have some kind of a repo, and then I have some kind of artifact, which is a digest, right? How do I know what is what? So kind of connecting those two kind of objects together. So that we made these verbs in order to handle some of the use cases, and we can talk about that a little bit more in detail later on. But this allows for the connection between the different objects as well as the attestations and so forth. So if I jump back into GraphQL, so you saw the one that Mihai just showed with the packages, right? We can do similar things with for example, like the source tree, and we can switch back and forth, like he's saying, Neo4j, or if it's OrangoDB or whatever else it is, right? We can switch back and forth between them, and then retrieve information based off that. So for example, for the source tree, right, there is a type, a namespace, and a name associated with it, right? So we have some data ingested already, so we can query based off that stuff, right? So I say, okay, I want to know, right, the GUAC repo, right? Where is that? What is the releases? What's in there, basically? So it kind of gives us all that kind of information, and we can go and query deeper into it, like based on like, just give me a qualifier which has a specific commit to it and a specific name that's going to give us that information back. So we can do a lot of querying and a lot of fine tuning on the different information that's stored in the database. So if I show this piece now, which is this is more about the CVEs and such. So we can query for specific CVEs. Right now, this is not very useful because like you might be thinking like, well, what am I going to do with all the CVE information? You want it to be tied to a specific package or a specific thing, right? So that's where, if you remember, that's where this is going to come into play. So this one would be, certified vulnerability, right? So it's going to tie to a specific package. So currently we don't have this implemented in GUAC, so we're still working on that piece. But once we have certified vulnerability, the attestation kind of created, then it will allow us to query in here and say like, hey, I want to query for this package. Give me all the CVs or CVEs or OSV IDs, whatever is associated with it. Give me all that kind of stuff back, and it'll allow us to do that. So let me move on to some of those other attestations. So like how they would actually work. So again, this one is like, hey, give me all the dependencies for a specific package, right? So this is something that we have already implemented, so I can show this off. So like query number. So you can see if I don't specify anything, it's just going to give me everything back, which is kind of pointless at this point, right? But if I want to specify a specific, hey, I want to look at the Debian package and what are all the dependencies, and this is test data, so ignore the inconsistencies. Like we're just using this as a testing backend. We haven't actually ingested any real data into it yet, so the data might be wrong. So just please ignore that. It's just to make sure that the queries were actually working and that it's outputting the proper information that we wanted. So you can see like, yep, this is the dependency that's associated with it. These are the dependent packages. So I mean, this is the main package that we wanted to look at, and then here are all the dependent packages that are associated with it. So it gives us that information back. And then we can go into like, say, for example, now I wanted to know, hey, maybe what are all the like the dependent package, right? I want to know where OpenSSL is used, right? So we can go backwards also. So I want to be like, hey, I want to know where OpenSSL is a dependent package. So then it gives us another query back saying like, hey, this is the package, and you can see OpenSSL. OpenSSL is in here as one of the dependent packages. And if I scroll down, there will be another one, and so forth. And it's just that, and I think that's overall like this will be this will help us in order to, right, like I said, obtain the relationships, but at the same time, the GraphQL allows us to query much easier, right? So you don't have to learn, Cypher queries with Neo4j, or if it's OrangoDB, right? Whatever query language that it uses, GraphQL helps us to, abstract all that hard work out. At the same time, ingestion as well as querying will be agnostic to the backend database.
It also allows us to easily integrate with existing GraphQL tools and libraries, just sort of
right,
without needing to write specific integrations.
Also, I think that is that if you have multiple GUAC instances in this case, you can easily just query across all of them at the same time in the GraphQL interface. Cool. Jack?
Hello. Two things that sort of came to mind. The first one, I'll drop a link in chat, was some sort of musings about attestations for what I would call inspections. How to sort of, what attestation format should look like. So that might be something to consider in terms of some of the things that you showed in the ontology as relationships. The other one is I saw the qualifiers as a key value store, and that makes me anxious as an escape hatch from the ontology. That's not governed by the ontology. That concerns me. So it does obviously make it more flexible and allow people to attach arbitrary metadata, but on the other hand, it makes it more flexible and allows people to attach arbitrary metadata. So So for the ones that are common already, I would hope to see those migrate into part of the ontology.
Yeah, I think others can also speak to this, but I think we kind of ran into the situation as well where we're looking at the different polls and all of them were semantically different. So I think at some point we need to come up with something that we'll call the predicate library, which is like, how am I gonna pass all these things and give them semantic meaning so that we can represent them in the ontology. So yeah, that's something that we have on our list to look at.
Right now, the GraphQL interface is still in flux, so we might still change things around and move them. So initially we had just one qualifier per each version. Now we have like a full key value store, so it's all gonna change depending on use cases.
Yeah, and some of these are, obviously going to be, there's also probably going to be some level of practicality as well. Just certain things we might have to say, hey, we recognize that this sort of steps us out of the ontology, but doing inside the ontology doesn't scale or whatever. There's going to be a lot of interesting challenges on that front. And then to what Brendan said with the predicate dictionary of looking at sort of schema, or sorry, not schemas, ways to map into the ontology from external. So different data types and data sources can say, hey, here's how I map into the GUAC ontology.
Jen?
Hey, so yeah, good stuff to start with that. So the current ingestion pipeline is basically not usable with this GraphQL API, right? The data that you can. So I was wondering how we can. So what are the plans there? How we can help? Would it be useful maybe to, I don't know, Kevin and I focus on maybe CycloneDX and try to create things that create data in the database in a new ontology, or?
So I think how we have it set up now is we have like the collectors that collect the documents and then pass it to the parsers that pass it into the ontology. So I think any help that we can have with like, oh, maybe we're not collecting from the particular source, or we are not able to, like, I think a place where we struggle a lot with is like passing the SBOMs, because a lot of implementations sometimes do interpret the spec differently, and we end up having to use a lot of heuristics. So I think having additional context on like, okay, how do we actually pass this roughly, right? So one example is like, if you use Sift to generate an SBOM, it may not actually provide a fully qualified valid OCI string with the hash in it.
Yeah.
And so like right now we have to do a little bit of like gymnastics to kind of get around it and to use some heuristics. It's not the most sometimes can be a little bit brittle. So I think anything that we can do to help solidify that once the ontology kind of well, the ontology is already defined. So I think at least having a way to kind of pass and get all the information will be super helpful. And I think this is probably a more lengthy discussion, so we'll be happy to talk offline as well about this.
Yeah, we can chat on Slack for sure. So let me get this straight. So assembler part of the code, I think, is still transforming everything to the old ontology, right? So
yes, yeah.
Is there any timeline when the new one will be, or is this a place to help?
Next week, right? No.
Yeah, around the next week, 2 weeks from now. So basically, what we have to do is create all of the ingestion, all of the mutation for ingestion, and then just link them to the rest of the GUAC.
Okay, yeah, just wondering where we can plug in and help with, but yeah. Mm-hmm. And another thing I saw, maybe Brendan, or I don't know who is showing the API to ingesting using the GraphQL. So I didn't see those examples in the GitHub issues. So if you can share these maybe more examples of how to use GraphQL to ingest data, to query data, what you showed today is somewhere that we can play with and get more ideas. That would be super helpful from my point of view.
Yes, we agree. I think so. We at the moment we just put them as examples in the PR that was creating like this part of the GraphQL schema. These are the queries that they're enabling. So I can give you like one example. I can paste it in chat. But at some point we'll move everything into like a README document or like setup.md and so on. So it's still work in progress. That's why we didn't put it there, because the interface is still changing.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, so, some of what you've seen in this demo was merged like this morning.
Yeah, I was looking it, I think today as well, yeah. So that's cool. Okay, good stuff, thanks.
Kevin requested the PRs. Mihai and Pop, could you links on the PRs in?
I just linked it.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, and I'll put in the meeting notes later. Cool. We have another demo. This demo is on what we call the collect subscription service. So earlier we talked about the GUAC beta being that, I want to be able to put in my SBOMs and my social documents, and I wanted to be able to figure out what information I need to get and ingest it. And the idea there is also, if I give you, for example, a SBOM and you say now I'm dependent on all these things, naturally I would want to also get additional metadata on everything that's described in the SBOM. So let me share my screen. Cool. All right, can we see my screen?
Yep.
Okay.
The font size is a little small though.
Okay, I'll make this a little bit bigger.
Thanks. Perfect.
Awesome. So what I have here is we created a Docker compose. This one can be a little bit smaller. We created a Docker compose that basically sets up all the different services in GUAC. So this includes the backend, the nets queue, with the collect subscriber service, and one collector. And so you can just simply start this, and what we're going to show now after this is up is we want to show that we can ingest a document and see how it kind of expands by itself. So if we open up Neo4j example, this one's still using Neo4j, using the old schema. So right now database is empty. What I want to do now is I have this document. That's weird. Okay. So I have this document in here, and it's a salsa attestation. And so what is pretty simple, right? It's just I created this container. It has this particular hash. Here's some information of the build, and here's which repo it's built from. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just collect it, right? So I use the collector, say, please ingest this particular file, GUAC docs. It goes in, something happens here. And so now what happens if I go back to Neo4j is I can see that, no, I want to show this. Okay, there we go. So we can see you have the attestation in, right? Here's the container. It depends on the GitHub repository. This is a builder, and this is attestation. Now, what's happening now is, so you see there's actually activity happening here, although I didn't do anything in the meantime, is in passing this also document, it detected that, oh, look, this is actually a container, and it's most likely an OCI repository. So let me go get more information out of it. So now if we run the same query, and see that it actually ingested like the S bomb that was part of this. So if we actually go and look at where this came from, there was an S bomb that was uploaded as part of this container, and therefore it's here. And what GUAC did was it said basically, look, I found this container. Most likely there's more information. Let me go try and find it. And the idea it will do this the same for like repositories, right? Now, and depending on this GitHub repository, now I'm gonna go find the scorecards information about this, or maybe I'm gonna query depths of dev on this. Maybe I'm gonna query OSV and whether any other vulnerabilities apply to any of these packages. And basically, the list goes on and on, right? So the idea is you see that with something, and GUAC and the initial bootstrap set of collectors would then like gather this information and then start adding it into the graph database. Cool. So whoops. So that is yeah, that's the demo. Dijan.
Yeah, great. Sorry, me again. I'm just wondering long term. I don't have any short term. So you're now fixed on nets, right? Would you be open to expand that architecture to more PubSub services like Kafka or?
Yeah, that's a easy lift. We're just using it to transmit the messages, so that shouldn't be an issue. The emit function is just a generic Golang function, so we can just put it in.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because if we are going to proceed deeper on it, I assume Kafka would be our choice of PubSub system. So maybe go with something like cloud events to abstract this layer. Just talking out loud. I mean, it's seeing like, are you open for it, or you have some reservations in that area?
No, sounds like a good thing to do. So we don't have a horse in the race.
Yeah.
Awesome. Do you mind opening up an issue for cloud events? Awesome,
absolutely.
We'll probably get to it, but probably not the soonest thing because we have other things on the docket. Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to double tap. Yeah, the only thing I can think of as a long-term thing will be rate limiting on the outbound, because Docker Hub, GitHub services. So I'll be interested to see how is it sort of behaving like a work queue that you're using Nats for, like you're taking stuff off, doing performing the operation, and then putting the subsequent jobs back on.
Yeah, so maybe let me share the design diagram. 1 second. So this is the issue, and then design doc is here. Yeah, let me guess this one.
I feel like I'm in a programming interview. No, system design, sorry.
Yeah, so what happens? So the nats is just here between the collector and the processor. It does the processor ingester, and then we have this collect request service. And what happens is this is a gRPC service where it adds collect requests. So what we showed was like the parser got a request and it found some strings that I think it would be useful to collect. This also will happen in like the GraphQL API. So like, let's say I ask a question about this container, and then GUAC's like, oh wait, actually I don't have any information of this. Let me go fetch some more information about this. So this particular thing is a gRPC service. The Nats queue is only between this. So
okay, yeah.
It's all pool based for the collector. Yeah.
I guess the only thing is that I think it'll eventually need to be aware of the limits of different kinds of data that it's fetching. Just have some workload awareness. But I can tell you more things you already thought of if you like.
Yeah, I think if we have time at the end, maybe we can chat more about that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I think realize that hitting the OCI API is not liked by a lot of people, right? Because you don't want to overtax it. So we were actually working with BMitch, so we got a lot of inspiration from his Reg client, and we're using a lot of the API calls from there. So I think he tries to already avoid hitting the API as much as he can, and does like simple queries, and then if it needs to, fetches more information, kind of thing. So that's how we're trying to implement it. But I definitely agree on that sense.
Yeah, I think whenever we can, if there's any aggregators for the steps of dev, or like whether OCI wants to aggregate some information and just expose it to a metadata API for us, that would also be perfectly fine. Cool. Any more questions? Hey, Raj.
Hey, so if I want to understand the ontology and the information model, where is the best, and this is my first time here, so where is the best place to go look at?
I would say that so I think the ontology, not ontology, there's a section in the GUAC submit notes, the Q1 submit notes, that probably will be good, like overall point. Within this notes, we talk about the overview of the ontology, the philosophy. We talk a lot about like, okay, what were some problems in the initial data model? So like, I think this gives a good overview. And then for each individual, there are like 3-4 sub problems of this ontology. So for each individual one, there's a whole like design document to go through as well.
Got it. And how do I find the submit notes?
So this one is I have it in the meeting notes, but it's also under the main one under additional references.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
And there's also that ontology definition one that's also should be linked, Brendan, on there too. So I think if you scroll down,
in the summit notes, right?
Yeah, and the summit notes. If you keep scrolling down, there was a definition. Yeah, right there.
I have to approve this.
Thank you.
There we go.
Yeah, so that was what I showed off at this when I was kind of walking through this, and this will change, right? Like I said, it's a work in progress. So we made this initially, and then we kind of started work, and we saw like, hey, maybe this actually needs a little bit of change. So this document will change as time goes on.
And then there's a ontology philosophy document, which is so a little bit overlap, but as you can see, we spend a lot of time thinking through this ontology problem. It's a pretty big one.
Thank you.
Cool. I think we can so quickly we have listed kind of a couple of issues within the meeting notes. I don't think I have time to go through each one without leaving time for questions. So if this is something that you're interested in, big shout out, especially if you're a UI person. We definitely need some expertise in that area. But yeah, there's some other issues related to the 6-star, as well as helping to clean out some of the testing. It's good for the issues if people want to work on them. If not, I guess we have about 10 minutes left. I'm gonna keep it open for discussions, questions, any thoughts, any ideas that we can riff on.
Are you regretting adding me to like the advisory thing now? So I'm interested as one thing in the ontology. I haven't looked at the document for a couple of weeks, so this is me coming with like screenshots that flew past. I'm interested in the question of containment or signaling containment. So, for example, a container image contains layers. Layers contain files. Files contain ranges of bytes, and then there's sort of like containment in more abstract things into physical things. So, for example, containment of a Ruby gem is both the abstract identity of the Ruby gem as well as the physical identity of the .gem file, which itself is a tarball, which then again contains things. So I'm interested in that because I think some queries are going to be about that containment relationship. What images contain this file that happens to be the same file that's contained within this dependency as an abstract, right? Because ultimately I'm trying to find slices of bytes that are naughty and evict them.
So I can talk a little bit about this, but I think others also may have few points on this. So I think that there's two things. One of it is like conversations around software identifiers and locators. And so I think that's one point where we've kind of separated. Initially, we had it like combined together, and we realized that it's like generated a lot of problems. So we're splitting it up now, and then we're basically saying like, whenever we see some sort of evidence that a locator has a particular package, has a particular software identifier locator, we kind of like make the attestation there. And so like everything, even if you have like you have a SPX document that says like this particular package has a SHA-1 and SHA-256 and SHA-512 of this, you know, this is an opinion of the the SPX document, and therefore we have to create the relationships that way. So that we will have in terms of containment, is if we look towards like what SPDX has done with this, right? I think they have like a lot of different relationships to explain different types of containment and different types of dependencies. Right now, I think we are keeping that a bit simpler, where we're saying we're just translating everything to depends on. But if there is a use case for us to be more specific on the relationships there, then we should be able to do that as well. So this is like partially a having the relationships between the artifacts and the packages, as well as just the inherent structure of the trie.
So we allow on the package trie, we allow referencing any of the nodes. So if you want to reference a subpath, you could do that.
I do know also that there's some work going on in the SPDX community of making SBOTs more expressive of that kind of information. So I think SPDX examples repo, there's an issue open on, you know, how should we express container images more than just like the analysis of it, but to also include the layer diffs as well.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I had a question in terms of like, I guess the community, in terms of like, hey, are there specific use cases people are using GUAC for? I think we would love to understand, you know, how people are using it. If there are any kind of things that we're missing, you know, like what else they would like to see. It's kind of like an open question if anybody's interested in providing their use cases or what they're thinking about using it for in the future and so forth.
Well, this is in the future, and as I said at the beginning, we're very interested in like having full system supply chain security description that is not just the pure description of like the files and the container images, etc. But like our internal systems at PlanetScale are extremely dependent on each other, like across teams, and sometimes we overlap our functions, like as humans, but also in the system, because of how convoluted our code and system is. And so that will tackle everything from the engineering productivity to like up to legal stuff. What we have many different types of customers, and we manage their data, and as we are a database provider, let's call it like that. So to be able to offer that transparency for them, and like, what does the relationship mean? What not only providing like, here's this BOM with the contents that we offer from our software side, but like, how does that impact you, and how will we address things in the future and stuff like that. So it's mostly like that. I am very focused on not just having data for the sake of it, or because everyone else is doing this, but like what the meaning behind like the graphs and stuff. So that's mostly it, but we haven't started implementing the step yet.
So if I see if I understand this correctly, so it's kind of more like from a framework infrastructure productivity standpoint to help the other teams kind of reason about their things and to have this.
Yeah, that would be the baseline, and that will also help us improve our internal releases. And it's like many things would be benefited from this. We're still like a very young company in terms of the product that we started offering like a year and a half ago. So we're learning a lot of what the users would like from us, and evolving like many different things. So and also it's a bit scary knowing how much responsibility we have in our hands as a database provider, and without going above and beyond the security aspects of it. So everything helps. It is brilliant for us.
Awesome. Thank you. Dijon, I think you were next.
Yes. So as I was saying earlier, the other part of the team is developing. I'll post links. So there's not too much details at the moment because it's also very early. But it's kind of a policy engine, which is specific to the supply chain security. So a little bit more focused in the general OPA. And for example, today, this policy engine can do things like query OSV directly or things like that. But in the future, what we would like to have is like a PRL as a service, let's call it. So one place where we can like a query for this PRL and give me all the attestations, and then we can check all the policy requirements for this, like is the license okay, is the there's no OCV errors or CVs or things like that, and then there's the other part which is like a proxy, which is like a proxy to all the different build tools, for example like Maven or Cargo. And while you're building, this proxy will basically be between the build process and the package manager. Yep. And we'll have this policy engine integrated, and basically it will stop you from even pulling the dependency that doesn't it's not good by the policy, so it has a CV or things like that. So in that sense, from our perspective, like we would be interested in. That's why I'm most interested in the GraphQL API, so that we can like build maybe Rust client, because this is all Rust based, so that we can query GUAC and for different information and get all the attestations or be more specific, like.
Awesome. So like secure ingestion stuff as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We are running a bit short on time. We have 2 hands up, so I'm just gonna go in order. And we focus on the follow-up. offline as well, we can do that. John?
Yeah, I'll be pretty brief. So kind of two high-level initial use cases, maybe one similar to Dijon, I think, where GUAC would be like a policy information point where it's used to like enrich or inform something else that would actually do the decisioning or enforcement. It'd be pretty cool if it was in GUAC, but that seems like scope creep to me. So using it as just kind of like that feeder of context and evidence and pointers and things like that. Also, what's really interesting to me is risk management. I could see this maybe somewhat similar to the VEX work, where you may want to make a statement that something's okay or not okay. It being okay might require a signature by an individual or some sort of like authorization to continue to move forward. And I think that kind of like feeds my policy information side. Like, is that something that could be reflected in the graph in the backend in the queries, or is that something that would need to be handled, by the chips or whatever they're going to be called?
I think we have an answer for that, right? I think we have the ontology currently has a certify, which I think can be certified on anything. So you can put the stamp on something.
Yeah, you can certify if it's bad. This is not good.
Yeah, we have it both ways.
I like it. Cool.
Awesome. We are at the top hour. Sorry, Raj couldn't get to you.
No, that's okay. We'll do it
Yeah.
next time.
Cool. But it was fun chatting with everyone. I hope this was useful as well. And we'll see everyone next month on the issues.
Thank you.
See you later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.